Hello, everyone. Welcome. We've got a very special guest today, Dr. Michael. How are you?
Hi, Bridget. Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you both. I just want to take a moment to sort of reflect on that fantastic intro and that motivating music. I just want to sit there and listen to it for another 15 seconds. And if you want to turn yourselves off right now and give me that, I'm up for it.
Especially as we haven't even started with the intro. That's the intro to the intro.
I know. So,
That's
I mean,
right.
Kylie gets a pay rise for that. Well done.
Yeah. Kylie's behind the scenes people. She's not, obviously. Yes, and thank you, Kylie, for doing an amazing job, as always. So it's a school year SOS, because school's about to start, obviously, next week and the following week. So our focus is going to be on how to support your children's academic and emotional success during divorce. And Michael is extremely experienced. He's a child psychologist, you're a family therapist, and you work with so many people in terms of both of those aspects, don't you, throughout New Zealand? Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us more.
I think it's one of those things, and if we reflect on recent times, COVID has kind of shifted things in a new direction for many people and many families in New Zealand. And if we think about that period of time, there was 2 years almost essentially where children went through a whole number of unexpected change. And coming out of lockdowns, it also forced people to think carefully about their relationships and their futures and what it is they're looking for, what they're wanting. And of course, that has also a direct impact on any children in those families or with those parents. So, the ongoing effect, we're going to feel it for a while. The unfortunate reality is, as you know, we've got increasing demand in those fields.
Yeah, you'll be, fully booked, I'm sure, well in advance.
I pride myself on not doing that, to be honest, because I always like to have some availability for people who have those moments and they go, hey, I really need to speak to someone now. So I try to maintain that openness.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Now, new school year coming up, and there'll be lots of children that are actually moving schools. Maybe that's from primary to intermediate or intermediate to secondary school. So, and their parents are going through divorce or have just recently gone through divorce. So how can parents and educators support children when they are going into the new school year, and particularly in terms of new schools?
I think it comes down to the golden edict of knowledge, and if children know as much as they can about any transition and change, if they know about it in advance, but in a school setting, it's the practical understanding of where they are, what classes they have to be in, what their schedule looks like, who their teachers are. But I think one of the number one fallbacks is that if they need someone during the day, how do they go about contacting that person, and how do they do that without making perhaps what they might consider a scene or something similar in the middle of a subject or during a class? What's the option availability for them to do exactly that? So that requires some arrangements in advance. It requires communication with the school. And here's the thing, for parents, you're not going to be the only one. Teachers are well versed in helping families, mitigate and migrate and get through change and adversity. They just need to know, and with as much time as possible, the better.
Yeah.
Is there should that approach be any different if there's a blended family going to school? So, for example, you already have a child in a school, and then the blended family with the new partner, the other child is going to be starting at the same school?
Yeah, and I think it also depends on how much cohesion is in the family, because children from blended situations, there may be other competing factors. There may be some adversity in that blending. Depends on the situation, but it does come down to knowledge in advance. One of the biggest things that can be an obstacle, and when we talk about resilience, if, say, for instance, a child, blended or otherwise, goes in, let's just say, a beaker of 100%, they're operating at 90. If something happens in their capacity, disengage, avoid, and all sorts of interesting behaviors. When I say interesting, often adverse or even unadapted. But what happens is the child then starts saying, oh, that hurts.
Do you also check your headphones, Michael?
My headphones?
Oh, there we are. You're back. I think it was your microphone. Yeah.
We lost you there in that last response.
Yeah, can you just repeat that, please?
Okay. I might have to keep my answers shorter. Maybe there's a technical issue.
We weren't trying to be polite and bring it shorter, really. We
No.
were quite
No. That actually might be a technical. It might actually be a real technical thing. Okay, let's restart the question.
So, a blended family situation. You have a child going to their existing school, and then another child or other children coming into the same school. Let's say, for example, the relationship is still relatively newish, 6 to 12 months, so it's all new. Would the challenges be any different for parents, or the preparation be any different for parents and educators in that situation?
Ultimately, I'd like to say no, it shouldn't be any different, but there are going to be nuances because every child understands their situation differently. It just means checking in with that child to know and understand, do they understand what's happening, where are they going to be, what's happening for them, who are their contact people, how do they gain access to them?
Yeah. What about in preparing the children then?
There's a number of things that can be done. But when I talk about knowledge, it's the children's knowledge of the school, the classrooms, the teachers. And if there is a difficulty or an obstacle, if you're aware of something, often if you're able to have a conversation with the teacher outside of class time, even via Zoom or even phone call, and the child can be part of it,
Right.
that will assist greatly. You give the child agency, but also the teacher gets a moment to understand and actually put this child on the radar to say, okay, every now and then, I'm going to check in with this person.
Okay. And is there anything that parents can do to help prepare anything else that the parents can do to help prepare the children when it comes to, say, their friends at school and the questions that the other kids might ask the children as it relates to blended families at school?
Yeah, there's a number of actually, and this we might cover this later perhaps, there's a number of resources which for parents we're trying to think in advance what our children might run into. But also divorce and separation is actually relatively common. So once upon a time for kids it was quite a stigma perhaps. This generation it's like, well, my parents are too. So it's being open about it. It's not being treated as something that's wrong or something that they've done. It's more about this is what the facts are. But the big thing in here is that the child is accepted, loved, cared for. People are here. This is who they are. And we keep that really clear, transparent, and we answer any questions with facts.
Yeah. Nice.
So how can parents and school staff, educators, collaborate to ensure that the children receive the necessary emotional support and understanding, whether that's in a single family or whether that's obviously a family in two homes?
The teachers involved, and depending on the school, they have support staff, different titles, different things, but knowledge is key. If they know in advance, then they can be supportive and aware. They can consult. It might be an email once a week. Hey, I've noticed this. Taking time, and here's the difficulty perhaps, getting a teacher or teachers or someone at the school just to run point as contact.
Yeah,
making a note of that one.
Yeah.
Just keeping in mind that teachers don't have enough hours, need more pay, and would benefit from a ton of other resources. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and speaking of resources, if at the end of this, we can actually add a list of resources or links, would be really useful from you, Michael, just to share with people. So as we know, there's always a lot of academic and behavioural difficulties, even with normal children, let alone children that are going through divorce and separation. Do you recommend any approaches or techniques for addressing these potential issues?
Again, it very much depends on the child and the situation. It also depends on their age. The things to be mindful for, in particular as children get older, is once we hit high school, we're running into assessments, we're running into tests and exams. If we're not feeling 100%, if we've got questions around what's happening at home, if we've got uncertainty, we can guarantee there'll be an impact in that sort of environment. Again, if the school's aware, they can cater to it. And I think that whole knowledge wheel, if you like, and that starts from 5 when we start school to the day we leave. Support staff at schools and teachers themselves will do their very best to help with whatever they can, provided they understand what's going on.
And that's why, Michael, we recommend that clients who are going through separation and divorce and they've got children, is they actually go into the school together, if that's possible, if they're amicable, and actually sits down with the appropriate teachers or deans or whoever and actually talk to them about what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Just
I think
don't do it during school hours.
Don't do it, yeah. And also then that gives the teachers an opportunity if behaviours start changing in a negative way.
Any change of behaviour, any change.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. When we talk about change of behaviour, we think, oh, well, something bad. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
They might decide to stop being part of a sports team. They might stop spontaneously speaking to a certain friend. So it's subtle little things that are changes from their everyday. So we're one eye open, one ear listening for those possibilities. But at the same time, we're also acknowledging and accommodating everything that they do. And we look for the positive. We accentuate the positive.
Yeah.
So we focus on that because we know there's going to be impacts. We know there's going to be deficits, but kids want to know about the good stuff. And if we can do that over the negative, children will be okay.
Okay, so on the flip side of that, the negative side, obviously, are there any warning signs or indicators as it relates to children's well-being, emotional well-being at school that...
Yeah, there's some big ones, and as I say, change of behaviour is the easiest barometer. But subtle things like all of a sudden a change in eating pattern. Oh, I don't want to eat that anymore. Little things like that don't seem to have obvious reasons kind of suggest that there might be something else going on. So we have to be really careful to walk around that, uncover perhaps. All right, sure. How are we feeling? What's going on? So we have to be really careful that our children don't feel that they are having to provide answers. We want to find this stuff out naturally. So it's a really subtle thing, but we're looking for those individual changes, and it could be negative, it could be positive. Oh, I'm going to go and join this team. Hang on, what about this? So we're looking for changes, good and bad.
Yeah.
Well, and that certainly resonates, unfortunately, in terms of the eating disorders that we see with clients' children, even sort of starting at 7.
Well, the root thing of it is if children don't feel they can control what's going on, they look for things that they can control. Food is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But one of the things that a couple of my clients had done last year that they shared with me was they met together and they were pretty amicable. I'm sure she was actually still, to be honest, wanted to pull out her ex's eyelashes along the way. She was in that phase. But they met as a family unit, the 3 of them, before school started, and the mum and dad and the child have a chat around expectations and what was going on, not so much around the divorce and separation, but positioned it to the child as you're starting a new school year, so this is going to be what we do. We're going to meet as a family and we're going to check in and kind of talk about the things to look forward to and any concerns. And then they actually did that at the before every term and just revisited. The parents checked in initially every week for exactly that, just the behaviours, anything good, anything bad, and I guess supported each other if one or other was worried about something, are you seeing this? What can we do? And I thought it was a really good example of putting aside their differences for the sake of the children, and having that meeting. And apparently their son now asks for the meeting. When are we having the family meeting? It's kind of become a get together. It's over breakfast, and they'll talk about everything. Now it's about transport and trains.
And I think you can journal that, or in the co-parenting app, if they use one of the parenting apps. And so if there is sort of the negative stuff or even positive stuff, you can get a real picture of it. And history.
Lisa, you've hit on the number one thing. If a child has agency in the transition and change, if they feel they have a voice, you're guaranteed to get good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it got to the point, Mum was saying, where their son was saying, I've got something to raise at the next family meeting. He wanted more digital time, that type of thing, which I thought was great. He did feel like he had a voice, and it was
just be mindful that children are the perfect negotiators.
Yes.
If they start from a position of nothing and get something, win. So we also need to be mindful that we're still got a role as parents, not friends, that we are parents, and we need to look after their eclectic well-being, if you like. And when they are digital time, or perhaps lunch in Paris, maybe not.
I've just put my son's keyboard and mouse in the back of my car. So you said, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to steal that one." Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
And my car's at work, and he's at home.
I'm grateful that it was the keyboard and the mouse and not your son.
Oh no.
Different conversation.
It doesn't happen in our household, Michael. So obviously children go through lots of anxiety even if they're not going through divorce, but obviously that gets escalated with going through divorce and separation, or magnified. What strategies can the community, those who are supporting, utilise to help the children cope better?
Well, anxiety normally comes from a position of not knowing. It comes from a degree of uncertainty around transition and change. Generally speaking, if we feel more in control and have more knowledge about what's happening and the why, if we can, as parents, park any difficulties we have between ourselves, and we're objective with children's welfare, we talk with the children around what this is. We are answering questions with honesty. We're answering questions with facts. We park our stuff, and we deal with anything that the child can come up with, keeping in mind anything the child is saying is valid, even if it sounds unreal or potentially preposterous. It's valid in the sense that we can acknowledge it, but then we need to uncover, what is this? What's going on? How do we support it? And what is a really good outcome to come from whatever concern it is that they may have? Acknowledge it, we don't dismiss, and then say, okay, what can we do with this? What do we do with that? Is there someone else we can talk to? Ask those questions.
Yeah. I can imagine some of my clients putting their hands up at this point and going, hang on a minute, you just mentioned answering with honesty. What about when there's been infidelity with the other partner, and that's the reason that the relationship has ended? How would you recommend that a parent answer that honestly just answer that honestly?
Yeah, no, and then there are some adult themes that children do not need to be part of.
Financial, for one.
And financial is one, but human relationships as adults is something that children do not need to understand the ins and outs of, especially if they're a young child. We can say, Mum and Dad have agreed that we want to do and have different things in our lives, so we're making changes.
Right.
But you know what? I love you, and tomorrow I'm looking forward to going to the park together.
Yeah. They need that reassurance.
We acknowledge, we affirm, and then we give it somewhere positive to go. That's Mum or Dad recognizing, acknowledging, giving support, and then giving direction. From a child's perspective, what happens then, Mum and Dad, hey, they're all over this. I feel okay, because I know that Mum and Dad are always going to be there for me.
And what about, as I'm trying to think of all the questions that our people would ask, what about if it's tweens or teens? I mean, obviously the answer is going to need to be slightly...
It depends on what sort of knowledge they already have, because a question like that is going to come from a particular place with some information. Again, we work with the facts that they know. If they're speculating, we can put boundaries around that and just say, hey, we've agreed to do things differently. Again, it very much depends on the situation, but facts are important, provided it's age appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Even things down to the divorce proceedings and things like that. They're just a no.
We can.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, things like that, we can say that, hey, we're grateful as parents that in New Zealand we have a court system that helps people manage things like that. We've got organisations like yours that helps parents manage things like that. And that means we can be really transparent about it and say, things are in hand, things are in control.
Yeah.
I think the couple of themes that keep coming through in terms of our coaching on a daily basis is the fact that understandably people find it really difficult, particularly if it's acrimonious, not to disparage each other to the children, which is
I'm going to catch you right there. I'm going to hit this on the head right now. Yes, but all parents take notice. Kids will remember that you said that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They will remember, and when they're older, they'll remember that you said that. And our parents go, oh, no, they won't. Yes, they will. And they will then judge you for saying it, especially if they find out something different. Again, if we peel back, what are the facts? Because that is caring for our children. If we bring our own stuff into that, as parents, as adults, we are potentially damaging that child. That's
long term, forever.
Not okay.
Yeah.
And the relationship that child would have then potentially with that
exactly.
parent.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there it comes down to, who is this person?
Yeah. The other thing, Michael, that we see a lot of is parents, because they're in a state of turmoil, but obviously, we're able to help them with that, including dealing with all the trauma as well. It's the fact that they're expecting their children to support them through this process of divorce and separation.
Oh, yeah, don't get me started. Again, parents, we're people, we have vulnerabilities. The moment we notice that happens, take stock, take a point, and go, hang on, I need to call somebody. Get on the phone, put out a text, say, hey, I've just noticed. I need to talk.
Yeah, and that lends to the fact that you need your support team going through this, because it's not at the top of the stress continuum for no reason, is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of support teams and children at school, let's assume for a moment that kids have gone back to school and it's gone to custard. It's not working well. There's behavioural issues, etc. going on. What would be a way, how would you recommend a parent approach the child about getting support, or, what's that conversation around, we think you need help, or
putting it in a way where they won't say no.
Yeah, and not making it seem like it's a really bad thing, but it's actually that support can be good. How would you recommend they approach the child?
It's a help-based request. Children are universally accommodating, I find, and in my experience, if you say to a child, hey, I'm kind of noticing this, I'm wondering if we can get some help with understanding how this might be made better. If we do that, then a child would normally go, okay.
Because that's a positive. You're putting a positive.
That's the positive. We do not want to say, because you did this, we are doing that.
Yeah.
That would be the number one, never do. The other one is the one I really encourage people to say, hey, I've noticed that this is happening. I'd like some help to see if we can make it better. We. Never you. Never use the word you. No pointing. Never you. I'm noticing. I wonder how it can help us. What can we do? And I think we need someone special to help with that. And again, age-appropriate language.
Yeah, the neutral statements.
Yeah, that was a big help when I was going to my coach, actually, and we decided, my ex and I, to get some help for us, but also for our son. And she was fabulous around that approach, and just reassuring our son that actually what he was going through was quite normal, that it was okay not to be okay, and we as a family, we were all having somebody to talk to. So
I think, Lisa, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. People think about asking for help as weakness. As far as I'm concerned, and from every capacity I could possibly encourage, asking for assistance is an act of courage.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers. No one does. That's part of being human. Asking for assistance means we have an extra pair of ears, eyes, another heart, another mind, something and someone else, and can say, hey, should we try this? We may never have thought of it. And that's okay. That's what asking for help is all about. It's an act of courage.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, tell us, what's your 3 takeaways for people? Takeaways, tips?
Thai is normally pretty good. Chinese sometimes.
Oh, well, we'll have to sort that out. That was weird. Work it out for lunch.
It's a hint.
Oh, yeah, that was obviously a hint.
Sorry, was that too subtle? Sorry.
Connie's laughing in the background. Yeah.
See what happens? Yeah. Sometimes you just can't let the staff get too much in control. All right. Takeaways is being open and honest. Speak to the facts. Try to avoid interrogating your children. Be unafraid to ask school to say, hey, is there someone that could just keep an eye out? This is what's happening. This is what we're going through. Would it be okay if I checked in with you by email once a week? Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you notice behavioral changes, good and bad, anything that's a change of what we're used to doing, we're asking ourselves internally, what's going on? What's the why? We don't want to go back, as I've just said, to interrogate our children. We want to think about, okay, let's see what's happening here. Who else is involved? What else do we need to know? Who else do we need to ask? Don't interrogate your children.
Nice, brilliant. Well, Michael, we love your work, and we would love you to join us again in another month.
Yes,
Sure.
and for lunch.
And for lunch. Oh, yes, lunch.
Yeah, see, almost forgotten. 30 seconds, gone. That's convenient.
So that's
Before you go, there's just a couple of things I just wanted to mention. Two things really.
I'm worried. What did you mention? No.
There's a couple of books around that might be useful.
Yeah.
Now, I found, they're available just about anywhere, but I did find them in the womansbookshop.co.nz. So I'm not in any way affiliated or connected to the Women's Bookshop. I'm not endorsing them necessarily. I'm just saying you can get these 2 books. Yeah, anyway, settle down. One of them, and I really quite like this one. There's a book by Patrice Krast it's called The Invisible String. Now, it's for younger people. So that's one. It talks about connections through separations. Well, it works with preschools, sort of 3, 4, up till maybe you could use it to up to 7, 8, and even then it would still be relevant. As kids get older, sort of 8 to 13, there's another book that's been written by children, with the help of children. It's called My Parents Are Divorced Too, a book for kids by kids. My Parents Are Divorced Too. As I said to you earlier in our podcast today, it's actually common enough an experience that it's around us in the classroom. You'll find multiple kids that have had and gone through that. So there's 2 books there that might be helpful.
Right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any support groups for parents or children, or that you would recommend in New Zealand?
There are a number of groups available online and otherwise. I am usually hesitant because being public forums, it can be open to all sorts of interpretation and advice. And I know people generally are well-meaning, but all you need is one that's not. I would
Yeah.
I would encourage people to speak with people they know, friends and family, sure, professionals involved in their lives, be it ourselves, lawyers, whomever, but also, of course, the school, because we want people to be supportive, but hopefully also impartial, because we don't always see things clearly because it's happening to us. So be mindful of that, embrace that act of courage, and don't be afraid to ask.
Fantastic.
That's a great note to leave it on.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. Smith. We look forward to chit-chatting again soon.